Good morning, good morning. We will be starting shortly. Please log into your e-device. Please log into your e-device now. We'll be starting in about 3 to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, City Council. The meeting will start momentarily. Can everyone please take their seats and silence their devices? Can everyone please take their seats and silence their devices? If you don't have a seat right now, can you please make your way to the third floor? If you do not have a seat at this moment, can you please make your way to the third floor? Thank you.
Good morning, good morning. Please log in so we can start the council meeting promptly. If you forgot your password or need support, please raise your hand and we'll come reset your password or help you log in. Please log in so we can keep the flow of the meeting running smoothly. Thank you.
Good morning, good morning. City Council will start shortly. Can I please have everyone take the seats? Good morning, good morning. City Council will start shortly. Can I please have everyone take the seats? Thank you.
Good morning. The council will come to order. Madam Clerk, please take a quorum roll call.
The quorum is now open. The quorum is now open. Please use the e-device. The quorum is now open. I will now call on those who have not used the e-device. Alderman LaSpada, not present in chambers. Alderwoman Dow. Dow is present. Alderman Robinson, not present in chambers. Alderman Hall, not present in chambers. Alderwoman Harris. Harris is present. Alderman Beal, not present in chambers. Alderwoman Ramirez. Ramirez is present. Where are you at? We'll fix it. But let the record show that Alderman Mitchell is present in chambers. Alderwoman Gutierrez. Alderwoman Gutierrez is not present in chambers. Alderwoman Coleman. Coleman is not present in chambers. Alderman Curtis. Curtis is present. Alderman O'Shea. Alderman O'Shea is present in chambers. Alderwoman Taylor. Taylor is present in chambers. Alderman Rodriguez. Rodriguez is present in chambers. Alderman Burnett. Burnett is present in chambers. Alderman Irvin, not present in chambers. Alderman Conway. Conway is present. Alderwoman Nugent. Nugent is present. Alderman Riley. Riley is present. Alderman Knutson. Knutson is present. Alderman Lawson. Lawson is present. Alderman Gardner. Gardner is present. Alderwoman Clay. Clay is present. Lawson is present. Anyone I missed? Okay. Your Mayor, we have a quorum.
Very well. There are 42 present, 8 that are absent. We do have a quorum. One alder has requested to participate in today's meeting remotely for reasons stated in Rule 59. Can we confirm Alder LaSpada's presence online?
He is present.
Very well. Can I get a motion for the approval of the participation remotely? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Thank you for the confirmation. Today, out of respect for our honored guests and their limited time, we will first attend to our suspend resolutions and acknowledgments. We have 7 acknowledgments today. We also have 2 resolutions honoring Reverend Jesse Jackson and honoring the contributions of women in our city, state, and in our country and around the globe. Can I get a motion for the suspension of the rules? It's been moved. All those in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. And just for clarification, we will return back to our normal, regular order of business, which includes public comments. But again, we want to make sure that these families can move on with the rest of their day. And again, I know that there has been multiple conversations with you all regarding your speeches this morning. If we can just keep those speeches tight so that the Jacksons, as well as their guests, along with the families that are here for Women's History Month, that they can move on. But before we get to those resolutions, we have our first acknowledgement, which is by Alderman David Moore. He would like to honor the originators of the Globetrotters, this incredible Fab Five, the Savoy Fab Five. Chair recognizes Alderman Moore.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. This is very, I think, important, and I wanted the family of Byron Long and Al Pullins to stand up and be recognized. For the family of Byron Long, Dana London, his granddaughter, and Angelica London, his great-granddaughter, and the family of Al Pullins, Andrea Smith. And so, as everybody heard of the Harlem Globetrotters, but before the Harlem Globetrotters, it was the Savoy Five. The sports basketball was invented in December 21st, 1981, as we know. And just 35 years later, in 1926, 5 young African men, Walter Toots Wright, Byron Fett Long, William Kidd Oliver, and Runt Pullins, and Imam Big Jack Jackson, all of whom had attended, you all know, the Wendell Phillips High School in Chicago, historic Bronzeville neighborhood on Chicago's South Side, formed a basketball team that were going to become known as the Savoy Big Five. And then from there, they came the Harlem Globetrotters. They became known as the Savoy Big Five in homage to one of their first place games that they played. They were asked to showcase their skills in the Savoy Ballroom. Oh, my mom and them used to dance there before dances were held there with the thought of attracting more attendees. A year later, in 1927, the Savoy Big Five will go on to change their name to the now world-famous, y'all make some noise, Harlem Globetrotters. Their founding occurred in the pre-segregation area, giving the team the idea to add Abe Saperstein as their promoter, since at that time it was often difficult for African-American men to open doors. Unfortunately, many historical accounts have erased the Savoy Big Five start and erroneously list Abe Saperstein as the organizer of the group, which he was not. The families of all the original players made invaluable contributions not only to the Savoy Big Five, but to the original Harlem Globetrotters team, just to name a few. Though the card given to them by Al Pullins' family allowed them to travel to games, and the first uniforms purchased by Byron Long's family allowed them to show up in style. A representative from both of these families will be in attendance. As I pointed out to you, today's acknowledgement is not only a celebration, but a step in the right direction of setting the record straight. 100 years ago, African-American men from Chicago's South Side set the ball in motion, created a pioneering basketball team that has now played over 26,000 games and continues to delight fans and dignitaries across the globe. The Savoy Big Five, not only black history, but Chicago history. And Alderman Pat Dow, this Phillips High School sits in her ward, and Mayor, if she has any, if you give her permission.
Sure, we will. We'll
Yeah.
do that. Thank you, Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Dow, would you like to speak to this acknowledgement?
Yes, Mr. President, but in acknowledgement of the time pressure, I just want to acknowledge the family and thank them for their participation as we gave an honorary street sign to the Harlem Globetrotters this past summer. And I do remember you, and thank you so much for your participation, and thank you, Alderman Moore, for bringing this forward.
Thank you. As always, everything dope about America comes from Chicago. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you again, Alderman Moore. Alderman Mosley would like to welcome Prospective Charter School for its annual visit to City Hall. Alderman Mosley.
Thank you, Mr. President, City Council. Today is always a great day to celebrate our future And from the 21st Ward, I bring to you the 7th and 8th grade girls basketball champions from Perspectives Charter School. Under the leadership of Principal Morales, Mr. President, I just want to note a couple things. One, you may see that this is not a roster that is great in size, but they are great in heart, they are great in dedication, and they are great in grit. And that has produced a winning recipe for them to go on and win this championship. I also want to talk about the coach, because these are student athletes, students first. And it's important to acknowledge that Coach Reggie Lee is not only the head coach of this team that propelled them to victory on the court, but also in the classroom. Coach Lee has been named this year's Charter School Teacher of the Year. So excellence inside and outside, truly embodying the spirit of the 21st Ward. Again, congratulations
Coach.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Well, hold on. What subject does he teach, though? That's important. Oh, okay. All right. Congratulations again. Thank you very much, Alderman Mosley. Now, Chair Rodriguez Sanchez would like to honor the awardees of the North River Commission's 2026 Community Choice Awards and Alita Tadio's 90th birthday. Chair recognizes Chairwoman Rodriguez Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to rise today to honor North River Commission, an incredible nonprofit organization in my community that holds the Chamber of Commerce. They have been leading with incredible programming for our businesses, and one of the latest things that they have done is the Community Choice Awards, where people in my community have the opportunity to choose their favorite businesses. And it is a truly beautiful testament to the environment and ecosystem that you can create when you have businesses that show up for community. I want to say that I am incredibly proud to represent the 33rd Ward and the way in which businesses have shown up to resist ICE in our communities. It has been incredible how businesses have become sanctuaries for our communities. But I do want to recognize how amazing it is to have an organization like North River Commission and the Community Choice Awards. We also have here Justin, who owns the first bookstore that we have had in Albany Park, owned by an Asian American. We are so proud to have you all, and we're very, very grateful for your work. Thank you. I'm not done. Miss Alita Toledo, she is turning 90 years old, and she, as a clerk here in our city for 25 years with administrative hearings. She walked into this building for over a quarter century with a level of dedication that most of us can only hope to imitate. On behalf of the City of Chicago, we thank Ms. Alita Tadeo for over 25 years of tireless work, and more importantly, we celebrate the woman and friend to the city on her 90th birthday. She's an inspiration to every one of us in this chamber. Happy birthday, Alita. Thank you, Mr. President.
Happy birthday. Thank you, Chair Rodriguez Sanchez. Now, Chair Haddon, I believe, yes, would like to welcome the 49th Ward Youth Advisory Council. The chair recognizes Chair Haddon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everybody. I am also proud to be accompanied today due to students having a day off of school at CPS, my 49th Ward Youth Advisory Council. These students answered the call to volunteer volunteer community service for the 49th Ward. They are students at Roger Sullivan High School, the Fighting Tigers, and they have been meeting with us on a monthly basis with my team to discuss issues that are important for all the constituents of the 49th Ward with a lens of young people. We have had big discussions from everything of what's happening at the federal level to what we're doing in our infrastructure locally. And in May, I believe, I'm even cooking for them. But they keep me on my toes, they keep me sharp, and they're making sure that decisions that I make in the 49th Ward are reflective not just of people who are voting now, but for all of our constituents and our leaders for the future. I thank them for their leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're grateful to have so many young people that are with us today. Next, we have Alderman Lopez would like to welcome an incredible delegation, a delegation from Cassia, Italy, but also members of St. Rita's Parish. Chair recognizes Alderman Lopez.
Good morning, Mr. President and members of the City Council. I'd like to take a moment to welcome our Italian delegation, if you can all rise, here from Cascia, Italy. Mayor Mario De Carolis, many members of the City Council, as well as an expansive delegation from the Basilica of St. Rita of Cascia, run by Father Giustino Cassiano. They are here in Chicago and have been here at St. Rita of Cascia in Chicago Lawn on the southwest side in my Alder Neighbors Ward, celebrating a twinning ceremony between our church and their basilica. The ceremony, which was a lighting of a torch which your office was represented at, along with members of the City Council, including myself, Alderman Tabaris, and Alderman Coleman, lit a torch which aims to bring about forgiveness and peace. Perhaps we need that torch in here. But I know that all of us can benefit from the life lived by St. Rita. St. Rita, who was canonized by Pope Leo XIII and is of the same order as Pope Leo XIV, whom will also be recognizing the momentous occasion later this year in Cascia, Italy. We are very thankful to have them here joining us today to strengthen the Catholic bond of unity between the city of Chicago and our sister city of Cascia, Italy, our religiously sister city. And we welcome them and the opportunity to share in this moment as we remember somebody who had the opportunity through a life that saw her husband, violently taken from her, her children die, but she chose a life of forgiveness and peace as opposed to vengeance. That is something we all can emulate, and I'm thankful to my brothers and sisters for sharing that light with us today and sharing that with the city of Chicago, and encourage all members to join us in recognizing their attendance here today.
Thank you, Alderman Lopez. And then finally, Chair Rodriguez would like to celebrate Arise and this incredible organization on their 35th anniversary.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to take a moment here to ask Arise to, they've already arisen. Look at that. Look at that. Thank you very much, again, colleagues, for offering me a brief moment to recognize Arise on their 35th anniversary. 3.5 decades advancing worker rights, dignity, and economic justice since its founding back in 1991. And their current office is over in 27, I believe, the great 27th Ward. Arise has partnered with thousands of workers to recover more than $10 million in stolen wages and compensation. They've supported workers in raising wages by more than $6 million Over 3.5 decades, Arise has emerged as a pioneering organization. They're a leader in the faith labor movement, partnering with religious institutions, labor unions, community organizations, and academic institutions to advocate for systemic policy reforms. We are the city of broad shoulders. We know that the backbone of that city is the labor movement, and Arise represents that. They fought with us over the years to make this the city with the best paid leave policy in the country. They fought with us to raise the minimum wage, and yes, they fought with us on the tip minimum wage as well. Thank you so very much, and a special thank you to their executive director, my prima Laura Garza, for being with us here today. Please join me in thanking them for their service to our great city.
Thank you. And finally, Alderwoman Clay has a brief acknowledgement. The chair recognizes Alderwoman Clay.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I am rising today to give kudos to an amazing organization in my neck of the woods called the People's Music School. The People's Music School is an amazing institution in multiple spaces around the city. It is the oldest and largest 100% tuition-free community music school, and they just celebrated their 50th anniversary, you all. So I want to say thank you so much for all that they have done for our young people. Their vision was started with $625 in a storefront, and they have grown to make sure that our babies have experienced music all around the globe. So thank you so much for all that you've done, and we really appreciate you.
Thank you, Alderwoman
Mr.
Clay.
President.
Thank you. And in the words of Apostle Paul, finally, my brethren, the chair would like to recognize one final acknowledgement by Alder Dow. The chair recognizes Alderwoman Dow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be brief, but I didn't want this to go by. Thank you, Alderman Clay, for bringing this forward. The People's Music School is moved into Washington Park and Bronzeville, and I just also want to acknowledge Miriam and Natalie for their commitment to the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alderwoman Clay. Thank you, Alderwoman Dow, for those last sets of acknowledgement. Now, before the rules are still suspended, we're going to go into our resolutions for the late, great Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr., along with the celebration of Women's History Month. But before we do that, I would like to take just a brief moment to pause and call for a moment of silence for our firefighter and EMT, Michael Altman. We are praying for his wife, Nora, and also for his parents. We're praying for the entire police and fire department, our first responders, and praying for our city because we have not only lost a public servant, but we have lost one of our heroes. So if you would, with me, City Council in the chambers, just stand for a brief moment of silence in honor and recognition of firefighter and EMT Michael Mick Altman. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Are they coming? Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Jacqueline Jackson and the Jackson Five. Come on, y'all, Mrs. Jackson and the Jackson family. You may be seated. We have Mother Jackson, Ms. Draper, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Ms. Ponder, Jan Camps, of course, son Yusuf Jackson, daughter Santita Jackson, sons Jesse Jackson Jr., Jonathan Jackson, Carolyn Curry, Dara Holmes, Belvin Walker, another Miss Draper. Yeah, I think we got them all there. Jackson, we got Idris, we got a whole box full of folks. Now, I do want to thank you all for being here today, and I know there are a number of you that wish to speak to this resolution, but before we speak, I would ask that the clerk read the resolution into the record.
Where it has long been the honor, tradition, and solemn responsibility of the City Council of the City of Chicago, this August legislative body to recognize and memorialize those extraordinary individuals whose lives, leadership, and moral courage have profoundly shaped the civic, political, and moral fabric of the City of Chicago. And whereas the members of this chamber join with the residents of Chicago, the nation, and the global community in honoring the life and legacy of the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson Sr., one of the most consequential civil rights leaders in modern American history, whose voice, vision, and organizing power helped reshape the democratic and social landscape of the United States. And whereas the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson Sr. was born Jesse Louis Burns on October 8, 1941, in Greenville, South Carolina, later taking the surname of his stepfather, Charles Henry Jackson, and through faith, discipline, and extraordinary resolve, rose from humble beginnings to become a defining moral and political force of his generation. And whereas emerging from the tradition of prophetic Black leadership and guided by an unwavering commitment to justice and human dignity, the Reverend Jackson translated the ethos of the civil rights movement into an enduring and evolving struggle for economic equity, political representation, educational opportunity, and global human rights. And whereas the Reverend Jackson's leadership and moral vision were profoundly shaped by the legacy and teachings of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., under whose guidance he emerged as a national figure, carrying forward the enduring principles of nonviolence, justice, and human dignity that defined the civil rights movement. And whereas the Reverend Jackson rose to national prominence through his work alongside Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., yet it was the city of Chicago, particularly the South Side, that became the enduring stage, proving ground, and living canvas for his life's work and leadership. And whereas in Chicago, a city long defined by both its challenges and its possibilities, the Reverend Jackson built institutions, mobilized communities, and forged a model of leadership rooted in moral conviction, strategic coalition building, and an unyielding belief in the transformative power of civic engagement. And whereas within the city of Chicago's historic South Side, and notably within the 4th Ward, the Reverend Jackson established Operation Push, People United to Save Humanity, an institution whose presence would become synonymous with empowerment, opportunity, and advocacy for generations of Chicagoans. And whereas the Operation Push and Rainbow Push Coalition, founded and led from Chicago, emerged as the nationally influential institutions that redefine the scope of civil rights advocacy, expanding its reach into economic justice, voting rights, labor equity, educational access, and corporate accountability. And whereas the Reverend Jackson's leadership helped reframe Chicago as a vital epicenter of modern civil rights and political mobilization, where communities historically excluded from power found voice, representation, and renewed belief in the promise of democratic participation. And whereas through his visionary leadership, the Reverend Jackson pioneered a politics of inclusion long before such language entered the mainstream, forging coalitions across racial, ethnic, generational, and economic lines, and expanding the boundaries of civic belonging and political possibility. And whereas the Reverend Jackson's historic presidential campaigns inspired millions, shattered long-standing barriers, and fundamentally altered the imagination of American democracy, demonstrating that leadership, representation, and national aspiration must be accessible to all people. And whereas the Reverend Jackson's Chicago legacy remains inseparable from his national and global impact, as his influence extended from neighborhoods to corporate boardrooms, from voter registration drives to international diplomacy, reflecting a leadership style that was at once pastoral and political, visionary and pragmatic. And whereas the Reverend Jackson's enduring presence on Chicago's South Side, particularly within the 4th Ward, strengthened the civic and moral life of the city, leaving a permanent imprint upon its institutions, its communities, and its ongoing pursuit of justice and equity. And whereas the Reverend Jackson's life represents not merely a record of historic achievements, but a living architecture of legacy while cultivating leaders, opening doors, challenging systems, and inspiring generations to believe in the transformative power of hope, courage, and collective action. And whereas the Reverend Jackson's story stands as a Chicago story of transformation, of a leader who recognized the city as a microcosm of the nation's contradictions and possibilities, and who dedicated his life to organizing within them with faith, resilience, and moral clarity. And whereas the city of Chicago mourns the passing of Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr., while honoring a legacy that endures wherever voices rise against injustice, wherever communities unite in common purpose, and wherever hope refuses to yield to cynicism. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and the members of City Council of the City of Chicago, assembled on the 18th day of March 2026, do hereby honor, celebrate, and memorialize the extraordinary life, leadership, and enduring contributions of the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. And be it further resolved that we extend our deepest condolences to the Reverend Jackson's family, loved ones, colleagues, and all those whose lives were touched by his vision and service. And be it further resolved that the City of Chicago recognize the Reverend Jackson's legacy as a permanent and inseparable part of the city's civic identity, historical narrative, and continuing pursuit of justice, equity, and human dignity. And be it further resolved that a suitable copy of this resolution be prepared and presented to the family of the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. as a lasting testament of the city's respect, gratitude, and remembrance.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Too much. Why are you bringing this up here now? Okay, you should not listen to this. Thank you. Now, in the words of a great philosopher, I heard one say that if you cannot express your deep emotions and feelings somewhere between the Gettysburg's Address and the I Have a Dream speech, you are either doing too much or just trying to show out. So again, out of respect of the family, we want your remarks, of course, to be as profound as you need them to be, but let's just keep time in mind. And with that, our first speaker, the chair recognizes Alderman Bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to wholeheartedly support this resolution. Sitting through the service, I don't think anybody abided by the 2-minute rule. But hopefully everybody abides by the 2-minute rule today. I just want to personally thank the family, because when we look around this room, the imprint that the Jackson family and Reverend Jackson has put on not only this body but this country is second to none. And I just want to personally thank the family, because I know I would not be here if it had not been for the Jackson family. And so when Reverend was here the last time, we were able to look him in his face and give him his flowers while he was here. And we were able to articulate how we felt about him and the imprint that he had on this country. And so I just want to personally thank the family again for everything that he has done, for everything that he will continue to do through his legacy. And ladies and gentlemen, it's really breathtaking to see the amount of love that is being poured into this family. And it's behooving of us to continue the legacy, to continue to do the vision that he imprinted on all of us. And the one thing that I will always take away from Reverend Jackson and what he said to me personally, he said, young leadership, keep it going. And so we have to make sure that we continue to cultivate young leadership, because that's the one thing I took away from Reverend, and that's the one thing I'm going to continue to do, is cultivate young leadership. Thank you so much, Mr. President, and thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Alderwoman Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too rise to be associated with this. To my essential element sister, Sister Jackson over there, Santina, and to Jesse Jr., and where's Yusef? I thought I saw him around there too. So I just want to acknowledge you all and say thank you, that it is not easy to give up your husband and your father to people like us. And he definitely, and 1973, from the first time that big giant stood up with the big afro and said, "I am somebody," in the amphitheater on the 43rd and Halsted, I was struck. To the next time I saw him at CVS High School, where he came to do voter registration. And then at the end, I had a lovely resident who turned 100 years old, was like, his wish was, I want Reverend Jackson there with me. And so Carolyn Curry made it happen. And so I say thank you to you all for being soldiers, for being strong. It is not just enough to say thank you that you have uplifted him and been the wind beneath his feet, but you have been his everything. And he knew that after he came home from a long day of work and acting crazy, that he had a family that loved him and embraced him. And so I say thank you to you all again for being behind the scenes and being great support systems for a man who is a legacy to me, to the city of Chicago, and to the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Harris. Alderman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. I absolutely mourn the death of our great leader, but also celebrate a life very well lived. A person who lived in abundance, not scarcity. A person who understood that extending your arm is not extending a fist. That working with others who may be like you or not brings us all together and lifts all boats. An individual who said time and again that immigrants were not illegal aliens, but essential workers. A person who walked 26th Street with Chuy Garcia and me many a time. A person who knew how to build bridges, not walls. That was Jesse Jackson. That was a man. I am not black. I am not black American, but I am Jesse Jackson. I am the son of Jesse Jackson. I am the son of his spirits, because he has not just impacted one community, one neighborhood. He's impacted our world. And I am just so grateful that I have the distinct honor to be in this audience amongst this family to say, thank you for a life well lived. Thank you for a life well shared. He has impacted us greatly, and I'm honored to say thank you to you for giving us him. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman. The chair recognizes Alderwoman Coleman.
Mr. President, I undoubtedly stand in support of this amazing family, Dr. Jacqueline Jackson, and to Santita, of course, Congressman Jackson and Congressman Jackson, and your baby girl in her absence. As a very proud daughter of Inglewood, it was Reverend Jackson who about 4 or 5 years ago, we met on a Sunday. That's how much he cared for not only this great city and nation, but just a small neighborhood in Chicago and Inglewood, where we met Soror on a Sunday to save our black president who had taken our school from to the #1 community college. And we fought hard with the prior administration, but I will never forget the sacrifice on a Sunday evening that he gave us. To you, Mrs. Jackson, you used to hang out with my godmother, Dr. Albertina Walker. Yes, ma'am, I heard the stories. And just a fun fact, it was Reverend Jackson who named Albertina the queen of gospel music, who actually crowned her after the passing of Mahalia Jackson. So to the children, I am so grateful that you sacrificed your father as someone who is a child of both pastors and elected officials. I know the sacrifice that we have made when mom and dad could not be at every event and every accomplishment, but the sacrifice that they made for others. And to Chris, can we give it up for Chris Hodges? Chris, caring for your mother and caring for Reverend, I know that we have to choose between having a career, having youthfulness, and sacrificing our own social life, and you are to be commended for the great care. Pastor Juan Anderson, I don't see him, but he is certainly one of the blessed disciples that took care of Reverend, was his armor bearer, protection, He certainly came to City Council every month to represent Reverend and push. And Reverend Cameron Barnes, the baby Q, I know he kept Reverend throwing his hooks up as a proud member of Omega Psi Phi. But God bless you. Thank you so much. And you all, this is great that we're here honoring the family, but how we can definitely honor Reverend Jackson is by coming to push every Saturday at 10 a.m., by getting a membership and supporting the next generation of leadership by way of Yusuf Jackson and Push Excel. God bless you all and thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. The chair recognizes Alderman David Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mama J, Santita, and Attorney Reverend Jeanette Wilson. I must tell Jesus all of my trials. I cannot bear these burdens alone. In my distress, he kindly will help me. He ever loves and cares for his own. I've heard that over and over and over again since I was a child, how Reverend Jackson came to fellowship. From at least I can remember, he had to be 6 years old, 7 years old, me and Reverend Hardy riding down the street, turning on the radio, listen to those words. And that story was told over and over and over again. And I can appreciate that. And because Reverend Jackson and the family coming to fellowship married something great with him and Reverend Clay Evans. And what they've done was create something that's so impactful to this world. As we say, and I think Alderman Beal said it best, we were so happy when he came down here because we gave him his flowers while he lived in this council. But I'm honored to say that every time I saw him, I gave him his flowers. Congressman, we love you very much. Y'all make some noise for this congressman who has done an excellent job. And so as we keep the family in prayer and keep you smothered, covered, and surrounded, as Reverend Jenkins would say, we're going to continue to do that. But I also want to say this, Mother J, and when you spoke at the Dr. King breakfast, who was the guest speaker that day? I forgot who it was because you became the guest speaker when you got up there. Because Reverend used to say, you could say a whole lot and say nothing, and say very little and say a whole lot. And what you said was, let nobody have power over you but God. And I thank you for that. And so as our chairman has, the Black Caucus have talked about supporting PUSH, become a member, I echo that. But also, if you have Netflix, go on there, see Save the Children. Watch Save the Children. And you will see and continue to see the impact that Reverend Jackson had. Thank you, family. I love you all so much, and we're going to keep you all in our prayer. God bless.
God bless you. Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman Haddon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, rise in support of this resolution. Hello to the family. Thank you for making the time. In addition to grieving the loss of Reverend Jesse, you all have had to share that grief with the entire world, the country. I very much enjoyed the celebration of life and the ability to be there in community with so many people who loved Reverend Jackson, and also, as my colleagues have mentioned, who felt the impact. So I just briefly will share the impact he had on my life and the life of my family. I don't get to claim Chicago as home, and it will be one of the deepest regrets that I take to the grave with me. I moved here in 2003, but growing up in Columbus, Ohio, I knew Jesse Jackson. I knew who Jesse Jackson was. My parents talked about Jesse Jackson. My father went to North Carolina A&T. He was North Carolina A&T. He was there. He was in Greensboro during riots, struggling in the civil rights. Jesse Jackson was a role model for my parents. Jesse Jackson ran for president I was a kid in Ohio. I still have this button from 1988. Jesse Jackson ran for president. Jesse Jackson made waves. Growing up far from Chicago's political world. Somebody once told me, actually it was Jason Lee, Mr. President, who told me this, Chicago is the Hollywood of politics. Growing up far from that space, and then having the opportunity to actually move here, and politics wasn't where I started my journey, it was in public service. It was in community organizing. It was in civic discourse. It was in public participation. And I got to meet neighbors in my community in Rogers Park and people from neighborhoods all around Chicago. And I remember the first time I got to go to Rainbow Push. And it's like, it's mind-blowing to be from some place that's so far and to know about this history, to know about these legends, right? You guys are legends. The impact that you've had on not just Black Americans, but all Americans, the impact that Reverend Jackson had, I just can't even state. And then eventually to find my way into politics and run for office and win. And I remember, I've got this great photo of Reverend Jackson with several of my colleagues, all of us who were in our first term in 2019, out there actually supporting One Fair Wage, supporting Fight for 15, supporting workers. And he was just right there. I'm like, how is this living legend? I was like, how is this living legend, this larger than life person who's had such an impact, just hanging out with us? How's he just hanging out with us? And I know that Chicagoans have so many stories like that. He was of the people. He was for the people. He was by the people. He was an inspiration. I think that's the legacy that I hold dearest. And when he passed, the end of Black History Month, I sat there with the news in my home, and I thought about how it's just an end of an era. In so many ways, the end of an era. The end of an era of statesmen, of people who could be for their community, right there, grounded in their neighborhood in the 4th Ward in Chicago, and also be negotiating the release of hostages in another country. Like, who does that anymore? Who does that? We don't have that anymore. And though I was saddened at his passing, part of me also felt like, you know what? He deserves that forever peace. He deserves that space, right? He's earned it, and we're going to continue the struggle here. He's fought his fight. He fought for us. He showed us a path. He demonstrated in so many ways how we need to be better, how we need to be leaders, how we need to lift each other up. And that's not what I see when I turn on the TV. It's not what I see out of DC. It's not what I see sometimes out of this space. There seem to be not enough people doing that. But you're here today, and his constant reminder is that it's possible. We can be better. We can lift each other up. We can serve humanity right from the 49th Ward, from the 13th Ward, from the 12th Ward, right, from the 4th Ward, from our communities, with our communities, in community. That's the way it's possible. So thank you for being his legacy, a part of his legacy, for sharing him with us. And thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you. Alderwoman Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too rise in support of this resolution. Thank you, Jackson family, for being here with us today, and I echo the thanks that I've heard so much already today for the fact that you shared him with the world. As an Asian American and as someone shaped by Chicago Public Schools, I'm deeply aware of the doors that were open to me and countless others because Reverend Jackson pushed them through. He marched through them, and he refused for them to be closed again. And his life's work didn't just change policies, it changed possibilities. You're going to hear a lot of that here, but I hope you understand how much that rings true for all of us that are here. I happen to be a graduate of Whitney Young High School, which a couple couple of the Jackson family, attendant Santita and Jonathan, my colleague, a couple colleagues here as well. It was a place that reflects so much of what Reverend Jackson fought for. It's students from every corner of our city coming together, bringing together different backgrounds, and I realized when I went to college how unique that actually was. To live in that little utopia that was Whitney Young High School in the greatest city in the world, in the city of Chicago, and it shows you what's possible and worth fighting for. And I know that influence in being here in Chicago, Reverend Jackson had such a hand in that. That experience stays with you and it shapes you, and it raises your expectations for what society can be. And in many ways, and in so many ways, as you see all around us, and as you've been celebrating his life, you can see that Chicago is a place, through his influence, where leaders are raised, they're tested, and then ultimately proven. And hopefully we have many more that come from it as a result of the work that he's done, and each of the legacies that you are all building as well, carrying that forward. You know, for the Asian American community, Reverend Jackson didn't just stand at a distance. He stood with us. I was very young when Vincent Chin was murdered in Detroit. I remember distinctly watching the television and watching my family stand at attention at the tragedy that befallen Vincent Chin and the heartbreak that his mother felt. And that Reverend Jackson went to her side to stand with her. I've never forgotten, and I know my community hasn't as well. And he did the same thing during the rise of anti-Asian hate. He is a towering figure that we will not forget anytime soon or ever, for that example of bringing people together. So I want to express my gratitude to Mrs. Jackson and the entire Jackson family for the lifetime of partnership and strength and example that you've shown to us. And may we honor him not just in words today, but through actions as we move forward. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alder Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am honored to be associated with this resolution. When I was a senior in high school in April of 1996, Reverend Jackson came and spoke to my class in Rockford, Illinois, Rockford, Auburn. Go Knights. And I had a very diverse high school, not unlike the room I'm in right now. And he talked about the opportunity we had in front of us as young people. He cautioned us against too much TV, which is maybe lost on my generation and the current generation, but not wasting the opportunities that we had before us. When it all came to an end, he invited every senior who would be 18 by the November election down to the floor of the gym, and we all registered to vote. And yes, and I was a kid who was going to register, I was going to vote in every election, but a lot of the people on that gym floor would not have. And to have that opportunity, and to have the story that I have, and to have never missed an election ever since, I hope I've made the Reverend proud. I'm passing a letter today in support of HB 4339, which of course has the support of Rainbow Push. Kimberly DuBouclet in Springfield has filed this bill, and I'll just read a real quick excerpt. Reverend Jackson spent decades urging young people, especially young people, to believe in their own vote and use it. Through the civil rights movement, Rainbow Push here in Chicago, and countless campaigns for justice and inclusion, he fought to ensure that participation in our democracy was not just reserved for the powerful or well-connected, but open to all. HB 4339 reflects that same spirit. It is a practical and meaningful measure to remove barriers to civic participation by meeting young people where they already are, in school, preparing to enter public life. By ensuring graduating seniors are given the opportunity to register, Illinois can help build lifelong civic habits and strengthen participation across our state. I have most of the signatures on the letter already. I'm coming to get yours, Mr. Mayor, as well. And I look forward to transmitting that to our colleagues in Springfield. So on behalf of all the residents of the 44th Ward, I want to express my deepest condolences to you and express gratitude for an extraordinary life of an extraordinary Chicagoan and all the many gifts he's given all of us. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Alderman Knudsen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to say to the Jackson family, I'm so proud to be in your presence. I was so proud to go to the homegoing ceremony and really celebrate Reverend Jackson, who, as we've heard today, and you've heard through the countless ceremonies you've been through, he's just a titan that means so many different things to so many different people. I remember growing up with a grandfather who was really proud of almost having the same birthday as Reverend Jackson in 1941. And he's a South Side Chicago guy, my grandpa. He's an Italian guy. But talking to him about the legacy and the presidential campaign. And there's one thing that really hangs on to me from the presidential campaign that I'd like to uplift, as many other things are getting uplifted. But Reverend Jackson was the first major presidential candidate to mention LGBTQ rights in his platform. In his convention speech, he mentioned gays and lesbians. That is an incredible additional legacy to add on to all the other civil rights fights that he led on. He was a visionary. He was brave. He was ahead of his time. And I'm so grateful to you. And like many here, you can count on us to really keep his legacy alive within this chamber. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. The chair recognizes Alderman Yancey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, rise in support of this resolution. As Alderman of the 5th Ward, I join with millions worldwide in mourning the death and honoring the legacy of 5th Ward resident Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. From his days marching with Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. to becoming a global leader in his own right, Reverend Jackson distinguished himself by carving his own path in the fight for human dignity, a fair society, and equal opportunity for all through his unifying Rainbow Coalition, which spanned international and interracial lines. His campaigns for president in 1984 and 1988 are clear examples of his mission to create an America that represents all of us. I had the pleasure of meeting Rev early in my career as a labor organizer and tried to walk the path that he paved for nearly 2 decades. And in 2023, I was honored to introduce him to my son when I was elected to represent him and his family in City Council as his alderman. I give my condolences to the family, Mother Jackson, Santita, Jesse, Jonathan, Yusef, Jacqueline, Ashley, all the grandkids, and the Operation Push family. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to mourn my father or my mentor or the love of my life in public. Thank you for sharing him with the world because we needed him. Khalil Gibran said, "When you are sorrowful, look again into your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which which has been your delight." So on behalf of the 5th Ward Service Office, it is with a grateful heart that I wish you blessings. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to support this resolution. First to say to Santita, Jesse Jr., Yusef, Jonathan, to the entire family, Dr. Jacqueline, number 2. And then also, one of the reasons why I know Reverend Jackson is because of Dr. Wilson grabbing my hand and introducing me to him. But there's a host of things I want to say, but one story jumps to mind. We were coming from Alabama to go back to South Carolina to see Reverend's mother, and everybody was asleep in the car except for you, Miss Jackson. And you leaned over to me and you asked me all these questions about my church. And I was nervous because I thought you was going to snap. But one of the things you told me was the best way to organize my church was to develop birthday clubs. You told me that the birthday clubs would bring morale and let the birthday club leaders lead and celebrate each other, and it'd make my life a lot easier. And so I just wanted to rise today to say to you, Miss Jackson, yesterday was your birthday. And on behalf of all the March birthdays, we want to say thank you and happy birthday. God bless you, Miss Jackson.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Byron Sixto Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I also rise in and with proud support of this resolution. I think there's nothing that can exemplify the legacy of a person but to look at their family. Ms. Jackson, to Santita, Yusef, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, Jacqueline, Yusef. To a congressman, the legacy of the Rainbow Push Coalition, communications, but more than anything else, the legacy of a fighting history here in our city. I cannot be more proud to stand on behalf of our community because you truly reflect the aspirations, dreams of so many people that continue to dream that one day we will be seen not by the skin of our color, but the character of our spirit. And that is the legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson. I am extremely proud because in so many occasions, when others look the other way, Reverend Jackson, the Rainbow Push, and your family received us and welcomed us like we are somebody, like we matter. And you show us not only the welcoming spirit of our city, but the respect and the dignity that all human beings deserve as brothers, sisters, and siblings. There are so many stories, but I would like to just share the kind of man that he is and the legacy that he carries. When in the council we had tough issues and we had a resolution in the city council, Reverend Jesse Jackson was not feeling well that day. He was on the way to the hospital. When I received a call that Reverend Jackson was in the elevator, he outlifted the whole room because he kept hope alive. That is the hope that many in our city and across the world continue to have. For a world where all human beings are somebody. Documented or not, if you're in the streets, unsheltered, if you are someone who is going hungry, and we have way too many, we believe that hope is alive in our city because of the legacy of Reverend Jackson. Reverend Jackson also gave us the Rainbow Coalition that elected the first black progressive mayor in the history of our country. And that city and that spirit is alive and well. But the family of Reverend Jackson, on behalf of my community, when I've seen not only young leaders coming to Rainbow Push, not only from Chicago, in Cicero, in places where nobody even look at us, Reverend Jackson told us, you are somebody, and you matter, and you have a voice, and we shall overcome. So thank you to the Jackson family for that beautiful spirit. You always have a friend in our community because we see you, because you see us. So thank you so much. And let's keep hope alive. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Alderwoman Mitz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too would like to rise and support this resolution. I thank all my colleagues for all the words that's been spoken, but I have to represent the West Side. And when I tell you Reverend Jackson made his way over, and there are leaders that are representing him now because of Reverend Jackson. Reverend Irie Ackley, Reverend Marsha Hatch got their leadership role from Operation Push under the leadership of Reverend Jackson. They have a voice that's speaking. The voice that you hear now echoing in young folks who are out here now on the battlefield trying to continue to work. I heard my grandson say as he voted at age 18, he's 19, his first vote. He never knew of Reverend Jackson. But as the service went on, he knew this was a great man, somebody that he needed to know. I said, well, that's what your phone is for. Go look him up instead of all that other stuff you look at. Then he came back and he says, oh, Mom, wow, I didn't know this. I want to be like this man. I want to change life. Well, Reverend Jackson changed some life. I first came in office, he saved a lady home right there on the west side. Like, well, and how he did it, all of a sudden, it was done, dealing with the banks. Miss Ministraw, God bless her home house, she done passed on now, but he saved her home. He helped to not only do the bread basket from the south side to the west side. Yeah, they would call me over and say, come on over here, get this. Reverend Wilson, you all had the bread basket at the Operation Push. We would go and get food to make sure kids was able to eat during the summer months, the programs that they have. And every Martin Luther King celebration, those events, and bringing back memories. I looked at the world and said, wow, it's a shame that sometimes you don't recognize how leadership carries you on until a person is gone. So now, with Reverend Jackson being our last civil rights leader, we better take notice. Take notice to what his legacy was all about. And somebody has to make sure that we carry that torch, passing it down to our children, not keeping it to ourselves, because the world do turn around, and it's just in a different form. So if you want them to be successful, open up your eyes, start talking, and let's get the word out so that they too can have some hope in their life and in the life of all Americans. Thank you. God bless you. We're praying with all of you on behalf of 37 Ward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman. All right, the chair recognizes Alderman Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I first met Reverend Jackson at a Bulls game. I was a little kid. I was at a Detroit Pistons game with Isaiah Thomas's mother, Mary Thomas, and as if they were old friends, she introduced me to the Reverend. One thing, I actually did a little research, and one thing I think there's a misnomer about Reverend Jackson, and the fact that people talk about Operation Breadbasket from a perspective of food a lot of times. But the reality was that it was about economics. And without economic parity for our community, then all of the things that we talked about, all of the things that people fought for were of naught. Because again, at the end of the day, it comes down to the dollar bill. And I think that was one thing that Reverend Jackson understood, and he understood the power of economics and the power of firstly and secondly, the vote. Now, when he was here, when we did his 80th birthday, one thing that I said, that with the Voting Rights Act, a lot of us in this room owe seats to that work. Because he even here in the city of Chicago, we had some battles on getting representation for our community. But again, it was that groundwork that was laid back in the 60s that moved into the 70s and 80s that got us to a point that we have these seats that we have today. But one thing, I want to close with this. Let's not forget the fight for economic justice in what Reverend Jackson spoke of, what he talked about, and what he teached on. Sometimes people may have misunderstood what he was trying to do economically, but without the economics, everything else is useless. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Irvin. And I do appreciate the brevity here. We are on our 15th speaker now. Just a few more that we have, at least on my sheet. The chair recognizes Alder Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the family for your sacrifice. Mama Jackson, thank you for sharing Reverend Jackson with us, and to the children who sacrificed the fathers so that he could be shared with the entire world. He taught everyone in this room and across this globe that we are all somebody, and that we can organize and put our best foot forward to be able to build the coalition that not just this country needs, but this world needs in this moment. I hope that we take Reverend Jackson's spirit with us as we are fighting great odds that are trying to deteriorate not just our coalition, but us as human beings. As a Latina born and raised in Humboldt Park, Jesse Jackson visited a small church on North Avenue called San Lucas Church. And I remember Puerto Ricans being extremely proud to have Reverend Jackson in that church, not just talking about what was needed in the moment, but what was needed in the future for our coalition to be strong. Our Puerto Rican community is extremely proud of the legacy that Reverend Jackson left behind, and we intend to carry that legacy moving forward. So thank you for taking time and being in the box with us today, for embodying everything that Reverend Jackson was, and I hope that this body can do the same. Thank you for your time today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alderwoman Dow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to be associated with this resolution as well. I'm not originally from Chicago. I'm originally from New York. And one of the things that attracted me to this city was only having Jet magazine and Ebony magazine in my house, of which the Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. was always featured, along with other people. That was what attracted me here to Chicago. I just wanted to say to the Jackson family that I appreciate your giving us him in this country and in the world. I had an opportunity to work in the Harold Washington administration, and I always wondered, well, why can't we do that in New York, being that I was from there? So I would like to acknowledge that but for Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., there never would have been a David Dinkins in 1990. And so thank you so much for making that happen in my old beloved city. On behalf of the residents of the 3rd Ward, I just wanted to express our condolences to the entire family. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank Jesse Jackson Jr. Because really, I wouldn't be in this seat but for you coming to support me, and I really appreciate that. And so I know that the spirit of the Father lives in the children, and wanted to thank you all very much and express my condolences and love for the family. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Villegas.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for bringing this resolution forward. I want to start off by offering my condolences to the Jackson family. My interaction with the great Reverend happened with Reverend Barry during Hurricane Maria, when the island of Puerto Rico was devastated, and we were trying to get supplies from Chicago to Puerto Rico in the midst of all the damage, and an administration that was not helping the island of Puerto Rico. And I remember meeting with Reverend Barry and Reverend Jackson, and I remember telling Reverend Barry, like, what is Reverend Jackson going to do here? And he was able to use his connections and his relationships to get an airplane, to get that airplane to load 50 pallets of supplies that was much needed and get it there to the island. And so forever we'll be grateful for the Reverend stepping in there. And then I remembered, why would Reverend Jackson be concerned with this? And I remember that push, People United for Saving Humanity. This is a gentleman that just looked at saving humanity. And when you think about all the great civil rights leaders that I've heard of, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Cesar Chavez, it's not often that you get a chance to meet a living legend. And so I had that opportunity to meet Reverend Jackson and work with him collaboratively in order to help the people in Puerto Rico. So forever we'll be grateful for that assistance. Again, God bless your family, and from the 36th Ward, we miss him. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Thank you. The chair recognizes Alderman Conway.
Mr. President, I've had the opportunity to speak at Rainbow Push several times, and I'm always grateful to be invited and witness the greatness. Not to talk politics in this hallowed chamber, but on the day after an election, I think a lot of us are asking, what makes us all Democrats? As I sit here with my colleague to the left and colleague to the far left. I'm not talking about Scott, by the way. And I think about that. I remember watching Reverend Jackson's speech at the convention in 1988. And the quote that really jumped out to me as a 10-year-old was, "The only justification we have for looking down on someone is that we're going to stop and pick them up." And I think that is what binds us together as members of City Council, really giving voice to the voiceless. And it was the Reverend that taught us that. So I want to thank you all for sharing your husband, your father, your grandfather, and Reverend Jackson with us, and allowing us to help in any way we can preserve that legacy and grow upon it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all very much.
Thank you, Alderman. The chair recognizes Alder Vasquez. And before you proceed, I just have one more person, and that will be Alderwoman Scott. So if you wish to speak, please give us acknowledgement now. Alder Vasquez.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you all for being with us and for sharing the good Reverend with all of us. Many of us will say keep hope alive is something that's been embedded in us because of the good Reverend's words. I think when we think about the times we find ourselves in currently, it feels rough. We see the racism being every bit as blatant as it used to be. And I can imagine what it must have been like when the world lost the good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and what it must have felt like about the kind of loss the world had. And how does one continue that kind of legacy and that kind of work? But then we had the Reverend Jesse Jackson to continue that work. And so in that time, I believe it was a lot more challenging and darker than it is now. To think of the audacity of that same hope that would lead someone to put on the cape and solve every problem every single time, because the time is always right to do what's right, and to then run for the highest office in this nation at a time where, heck, it's challenging now, so I can't even imagine what it was like back then. And so I know a number of our colleagues have mentioned the end of an era, but I think about really what it means to plant the seeds and the continuation of an era. Not only is it members of the family that have continued that good work, that public service, that dedication to humanity, but there are so many people that have articulated what that presence and those words have meant to all of us and the work that we continue to do. Hope is a sometimes ambiguous concept, but I think it's different when it comes from people of struggle. People who have had nothing that work to help other people and uplift whole communities, regardless of what they look like, where they come from, understanding that we all share that same humanity and what it takes to sacrifice time, commitment, emotion. We are much better for the good Reverend's contributions, even in this time where we feel like we're taking steps backwards. All the seeds that have been planted, all the work that we all do and we continue to do, will also continue to be inspired by the good Reverend's work. And so as we all do around this time, we try to find quotes and reflections to kind of keep us strong. And I think about how hard it is to keep hope alive. We can say it all the time, but we have to deal with a lot of hardship, both internally, externally, in this whole world. And so the words that I wanted to share was about what it takes to be a leader. And he said, leaders must be tough enough to fight, tender enough to cry, human enough to make mistakes, humble enough to admit them, strong enough to absorb the pain, and resilient enough to bounce back and keep on moving. And so when I think about the different decades of work, seeing the good Reverend through the different stages in life, still coming, still attending, still being at rallies, even when it was a team behind him and having to be in a wheelchair with us, that shows a resilience that I don't think is often appreciated. And I think about it constantly. And so as much as we feel the loss, there's also a peace that the good Reverend is at rest after coming and showing up and showing out for all of us constantly. And so the best way we can continue that legacy is by showing up and doing that work, especially in this moment in this country. And so I thank you all for all the sacrifices you've made. I thank you all for continuing the legacy. Chicago would not be Chicago, and this world would not be this world if it wasn't for the good Reverend. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Alderwoman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is what legacy looks like. My dad, Michael Scott Sr., worked alongside with your dad. I remember sitting in this same booth hearing amazing words about my dad, and then to sit here and hear the amazing things about your husband, your father, your relative, it just resonates with me. My dad, Michael Scott Sr., worked alongside with your dad to fight for economic opportunity and a stronger community. He was the first person, your dad was the first person, Jesse Jackson was the first person to sit by my side when I lost my dad. He was the first person that rang that doorbell for me when I lost my dad. And as a young girl to now, Reverend Jackson's life reminds me that real change comes from courage, faith, and a commitment to serve others. For that, we thank you, Jacksons. We thank you for sharing him with us. And we thank you for the honor and the legacy he leaves behind. To all the Jacksons, I thank you, I thank you, I thank you, and I love you.
Thank you. Thank you. Alderman Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too rise in support of this resolution, and I will do my best to take Alderman Beal's advice, and I will try to be brief. When your father was with us in 2023, he came to City Council, and in the past few years in my life, I've tried to do a better job of expressing my gratitude, and I was able to express my gratitude to your father, and I had mentioned how he impacted my life, and I probably wouldn't be, truth be told, in this seat, in this position, to serve as alderman of the 45th Ward. I am on the far northwest side of Chicago in Jefferson Park, and you may be asking, how in the world did your father impact my life? As a first-generation American, and somebody who struggled in school, barely graduated high school, I was working construction as a 19-year-old, and I had a dream to become a Chicago fireman. And much like the fireman we saw yesterday, firefighter Altman pass, who comes from a long lineage of firefighters, I did not. And usually back in the 90s, it was kind of like you kind of had to know somebody to get on the fire department, or at least that was the word on the street. And I didn't know anybody. And I took a test in 1995, and I didn't score high enough on this test. And your father was able to fight the city and say that there was other people who were on this test, who passed the test, and could be willing and able to perform the duties of being a firefighter.